When I shared that I was seeing someone, my sister's husband completely lost it. I'm just venting here, but any advice would be appreciated. Background: I'm Ashley, 17F, and my sister, whom I'll refer to as Jess, 25F, has been happily married to her husband, Jake, 34M, for 2 years. They started dating when she was just beginning college, and their relationship has always seemed picture perfect. Growing up, my parents didn't make the best choices, so Jess essentially raised me. I'm incredibly thankful for her sacrifices. During her college years, I'd call Jess at least 3 times a week to catch up. She'd share stories about her classes, her future plans, and her relationship with Jake. The way she spoke about him raised my expectations for love. She mentioned the beautiful dates and the thoughtful gifts he would surprise her with. Coming from a family where I didn't have a clear example of a healthy relationship, I grew very close to Jess and Jake. When she introduced me to Jake, it felt like I finally gained an older brother. Eventually, Jess and Jake moved in together, got engaged, and then married. After my parents kicked me out for refusing to pay rent, I moved in with them. I work at a luxury horse ranch where I enjoy my job, but the pay isn't great due to all the perks they offer. I didn't want to leave, so living with Jess and Jake was a lifesaver. Jake works from home, and when he's not at the gym or taking Jess out, he's usually around. He makes good money through his family's company, though I don't know much about what he does. Recently, they announced they were expecting a baby, which thrilled me. However, Jess has had several miscarriages, so we all needed to be extra cautious, especially since this pregnancy has turned out to be complicated from the start. I used to drive my parents' old car, but when they kicked me out, that option disappeared. I missed the freedom it provided, but Jake generously offered to drive me to school and work. I was incredibly grateful, as it saved me from the hassle of public transport. After his gym sessions, he would pick up Starbucks, drop me off at school, and then return to get me after class. It was a huge relief, and I appreciated the time he dedicated to helping me. During our drives, we would chat about everything, from Jess to their plans for the baby. Jake often asked about my dating life, playfully insisting that someone as beautiful as me must have a crush. I didn't want to lie but didn't feel ready to share details about the guy I was talking to, so I kept my answers vague. Eventually, Alex, 19M, the guy I'd been seeing, asked me out. We'd spent a lot of time together at the ranch, and I was really excited. On the way home from work, I decided to tell Jake about it, but his reaction shocked me. He went completely cold. It was like the warmth of our previous conversations vanished. He began asking a series of questions, and at first, I thought he was just being a protective older brother. But when I mentioned that Alex and I had been talking for about a month, Jake's demeanor shifted dramatically. He became furious, accusing me of lying and trying to keep things from him. I ended up in tears when he exclaimed, "What about us?" That line has haunted me since. I'm left confused about what he meant now, because of how he reacted. I've been overthinking everything that's happened since I moved in with my sister and her husband. There's a pool in their backyard, and I often swim or sunbathe out there. Lately, I've realized that every time I go outside to swim or tan, Jake seems to find a reason to join me. Whether he's grilling, mowing the lawn, or just coming outside for no apparent reason, it always feels like I'm being watched. Sometimes, he even jumps in the pool with me, but I figured he was just trying to work out like I was. After swimming, I usually shower in the hallway bathroom since Jake and Jess have their own in the master bedroom. Then I'd head to my room to get changed and rest. But sometimes, in that short walk between the bathroom and my bedroom, when I'm just in a towel, Jake would be standing in the hallway. He'd casually say goodnight, and I'd return the gesture, but now I can't help wondering if there was more to it. I haven't brought any of this up to Jess. She's been so fragile with her pregnancy, which has been extremely tough on her, and I don't want to add any stress that could hurt her or the baby. But I keep questioning whether I'm overthinking things. More context: after reading through some of the advice from others, I've started considering the possibility that Jess might side with Jake if I said something. It's hard to think about, but I'm also starting to realize that I might need to collect evidence, just in case. I want to handle this delicately, without raising any red flags. If I feel like there's immediate danger, I'll definitely tell Jess. For now, though, I want to wait until her health improves to avoid putting her or the baby at risk. I want to give Jake the benefit of the doubt. he's under a lot of stress with Jess's high-risk pregnancy, and he's had to take care of her more than usual. Maybe he's just overwhelmed, but even if I assume the best, I think it's time to set some boundaries. The way he blew up when I mentioned the guy I was seeing really scared me, and I don't feel safe. I know I can't overpower him, so I'm going to start asking friends if they can help me with rides, or I'll talk to Alex about giving me a lift to and from work. If worse comes to worst, I'll find a job I can walk to. In the meantime, I'm going to try to reinforce the brotherly dynamic between us. I don't want to create tension or hostility, but I also need to change my situation to protect myself. Update: is my sister's husband acting weird, or am I overthinking? First, I just want to thank everyone who left advice on my last post. After reading through the comments, I've realized that I'm no longer safe here and need to make changes immediately. As much as I respect Jake, I'm not willing to risk my safety. I tried to have a conversation with him after posting, hoping we could talk things out, but he was still in a bad mood, so I went to my room instead. Later that night, I felt overwhelmed and trapped, so I decided to go for a walk to clear my head. I didn't even make it 15 minutes before Jake started texting, asking, "Where are you?" My phone blew up with calls, and the fear I felt was indescribable. I just wanted to be left alone. Eventually, I answered the phone, and Jake started hurling insults at me, calling me an effing princess, and telling me I deserved to be treated like the worst kind of person. Then he demanded I send him my location, which I refused. I told him to calm down and think about what he'd just said. Afterward, I called Alex, who thankfully picked up. He drove over to my spot and helped me calm down while I tried to explain what had happened, even though I was shaking and crying uncontrollably. Eventually, I managed to relax and shared everything with Alex again, this time with a clearer mind. My phone had been ringing non-stop, and assuming it was Jake, I ignored it. But then I noticed it was Jess calling, and despite suspecting Jake was on the other end, I picked up. It was indeed him, and he unleashed another barrage of insults loud enough for Alex to hear. He swiftly took the phone from me and told Jake to shut the hell up, reassuring him that I was safe before hanging up. After that, Alex comforted me, saying everything would be okay. He drove me to his family's ranch and told his parents about what had happened. I'm incredibly grateful they welcomed me and offered me one of their extra rooms in exchange for some work around the farm. That night, I cuddled with Alex, trying to relax enough to fall asleep. I didn't go to school the next day, I just needed a breather. However, after seeing Jake's violent reaction and letting the comments get to my head, I started worrying for Jess. So, I called her, and thankfully, she picked up. It was clear she had been crying. She asked if I was safe and okay. Jess told me that the night before, she had woken up to Jake's yelling, which startled her, so she pretended to stay asleep. She heard him come back into their room and take her phone off the charger. Then she heard the yelling again, followed by the front door slamming. Jake had gone to look for me, taking Jess's phone with him. She was scared he might genuinely hurt me. About an hour later, Jake returned home, still in a foul mood. When Jess asked where he had been and what had happened, he exploded on her for questioning him. She said she had never seen him so angry before, he was literally wrecking furniture. After a few minutes of this, he got back in the car and left, thankfully leaving her phone on the counter. She checked the call logs and saw all the missed calls to me while he was gone. She called a friend to pick her up and tried reaching out to me, but I was sleeping. Jess was terrified that Jake had found me. She apologized profusely for not being able to protect me and for failing to see what was happening. Jess asked why I hadn't told her about Jake's behavior, and I explained that I didn't want to stress her out during her pregnancy. We ended up crying together. She shared that our parents were allowing her to move back in rent-free to help raise their grandchild. If that had been an option from the start, none of this would have happened, but I digress. Later, we went out for dinner, where I showed her my post. We cried again. Jess admitted she had never been scared of Jake before, but seeing his anger the night before had shaken her. We still need to collect our things, and we'll set a date to move everything out soon. My dad and Alex will be there just in case Jake tries to pull anything. Jess mentioned that Jake had reached out multiple times to apologize, claiming he was worried for my safety and that I shouldn't be out at night. She knew he was lying because she had overheard everything he yelled at me. Jess let him know she would be filing for divorce and then hung up. I love my sister and wish her nothing but the best. I know she will heal from this and find a wonderful man who truly loves her. On a lighter note, Alex and I are going on a date next week, which makes me happy. I genuinely want to thank the Reddit commenters for pushing me to take a smoke break. I think you may have saved me. I can't imagine what might have happened if I had been in my room that night, but I'm grateful I didn't have to find out.